Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Creative Minds, another episode of great discussions about marketing and all the creativity that is about it. I think today we have really a very special discussion talking about storytelling around marketing. And joining me again, but I think it's now a habit, is Stuart. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Flavio. Thanks for having me back again. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be back here in the Creative Lab and talking to you once more about these topics. It's going to be a good show.
I think so too. And for anybody out there that is online, please do put questions in, make comments. I can see what you're doing here. So hopefully we have a discussion going on with the audience out there, which is in fact part of the whole discussion, right? I mean, everybody seems to be now behind their screens with webinars and video conferencing, and it's I think people are growing antennas. But at the same time, it's kind of amazing the fact that when we ask people, oh, another webinar or another conference call or another video call, it's like an overload, and it feels like there is a lack of interest that potentially is starting to build up over all those.
Exactly. I think people are getting very tired, and because of the COVID crisis, a lot of the typical day-to-day person-to-person interactions are falling away. We're not getting congresses. We're not having the opportunity to go to exhibitions. And I think in the past, where a webinar would be quite suitable for imparting information or updating people or even sharing some technical news about a particular product, that really doesn't cut it anymore, I don't think. It needs to be a bit more engaging and exciting and interesting for the audience watching it. I think we're just very tired, don't you?
It is interesting because you were, in fact, on social media, you were advertising for the show and you say, I don't want another dead by PowerPoint approach, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And I think this is the whole discussion. People have been used to do meetings with a lot of slides going on or X slides going on. And then it translated into doing this with a monologue behind a screen. And a bunch of people like the audience we have right now watching, hopefully, and sometimes doing other things and picking up the smartphone or going having a munch or whatever it is. And the whole thing has now to evolve to the next step. I mean, COVID-19 made that everybody got dropped into that big pot of communication via video.
Yeah.
And there's been no time to get to learn about it, how to get trained, and what is the right way of communicating with people.
Exactly. But I think to say people have had time to get trained and sort themselves out is perhaps incorrect. I think people have had plenty of time to get themselves sorted out and figure out what to do. It's just the lack of interest in making it happen. It's not prioritizing it because there were lots of other opportunities which were better, perhaps in a personal basis, such as personal meetings, congresses, and exhibitions. I think when you look around, you've only got to watch television in an evening. You sit there and watch a television show. We all know how they're put together. You can sit there and analyze and pull apart all the pieces of the television show. And it's quite clear what works well. If you've got a competent host who understands the topic and is able to guide the direction. And today, you're increasingly seeing social media being integrated into that experience as well. So you've got people at home participating on Twitter with a hashtag. They're not only participating in the show, they're actually guiding the direction it's going to go in. And we've had plenty of time to actually prepare for that. We just haven't really taken up the gauntlet, I think.
Yeah, and it's in fact having a toll on people's attention span. We talked about that on the previous call.
Exactly.
And I think one of the key points has been, we ran a short survey before this call, and we asked people how much time would they spend on a video program, a broadcast, or a webinar professionally for a professional topic, not about talking about just documentaries or something. And amazing is the fact that 72% of the audience, 72, wow. It's a huge amount, says 10 minutes or less.
Wow, okay.
Right? And so here comes a question, why the 10 minutes? Is it because they really don't have the time? Or is it because they've been burned out? I would say with all those presentations of like 45 minutes, an hour, some of them even longer. I mean, my recollection of the first time I've been really following a product launch over, I would say over a broadcast, has been Apple, right? When they did the Worldwide Developer Conference, and they would come on stage and they would have an audience there, but at the same time they would want to broadcast that to a whole lot of more people. And they would have that rather long show, but it was done in a way that the flow and the demonstrations were linked to storytelling. And this is, in fact, the interesting part is that they were telling how people were using their devices or their products, what it made a difference, and it caught the attention. And that storytelling is what kept the people's interest moving forward into the call.
Yeah, and I think that's the point you've just touched on there. The fact that the survey at the moment, at this period of time where we have COVID and lockdown and restrictions, the fact that people are saying no more than 10 minutes, to me, is a warning signal. It means that people are just fed up with the quality of the material they're seeing on video, because, as you and I well know, people are more than happy to binge watch an entire series of something or other on Netflix. So you're quite prepared to sit down for an hour or maybe many hours to watch an entire series of a new show. But you're not prepared to spend more than 10 minutes watching something on LinkedIn or YouTube. Surely that is more reflective of the quality of the material that's being offered there.
Now, I wouldn't compare Netflix to a professional show, but I do agree with you, the fact that the attention span might be also different. I think there's also an element of expectation from the standpoint that people that are behind the camera, like the audience we have right now, they might be very well in a mode of saying, I want to interact, I want to stir the debate, or bring my questions or even some comments about it. And by the way, out there, do so. I mean, there's the chat is open, and whatever you write will come to us, and we will try to stir the direction that you want this to go. This is that what I call the 1.5 way communication, right? And this is a 1 way out and a halfway back in, because we cannot have everybody in the audience
participating
even less now
in person.
And I think my recollection is that I need to look at my notes, on February 2018, Lufthansa, the German airline, unveiled the new livery, so the new colors of their logo and everything. And they had an event that they did out of Frankfurt, where they have based, and a huge hangar with a plane in there and everything. And I remember people, they did that on Facebook, and they had, if I remember right, for sure Facebook, but they had, I think, Twitter too, and people were able to put thumbs up and little hearts and likes and even comment. I remember people commenting like, I hope they're going to keep that character, I hope they're going to keep that color. And Lufthansa had at the time managed to engage over quite a long show, in fact, with the audience.
Exactly. I think this is really, really important, because when you're sitting there on some of these long webinar type presentations that we often get drawn into for various reasons, whether we want to or not, you lose interest, because you are forced to accept the information coming in for 45 minutes, and then the question and answering session comes, and that relies on you being able to remember the presentation if you weren't able to make notes as you were going along. And then you need to pose a question which might be quite complicated and technical to a slide that appeared 30 minutes ago. So it makes it very difficult to have that long distance between the information and then the participation, which seems very odd. But in terms of the sort of Apple events, and also the launch of a new logo as in the description of Lufthansa's event, as you said there, that's something that we really desperately need in the type of activities that we get involved in our industry, in the electronics industry, in the semiconductor industry, in order that you can actually be part of it and engage. And then people would actually stay and listen for the entire session, even if it was 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and not just the 10 minutes which came out of the survey.
And the interesting part here is that a lot of people think that B2B is not the same as B2C. B2C, you can do all those events, and Apple is more B2B or B2C. It's kind of on the edge of the two. Lufthansa definitely more B2B, more B2C, I'm sorry. But I do believe that there's not much of a difference between B2B and B2C. I mean, in the consumer world, people want to know about the product they're about to buy, or whatever is the new service that comes out, regardless if this is banking services, or if this is a new car, cereals, anything, right? And this is pretty much the same in the B2B. I mean, B2B goes through new product introduction and checklists.
Yeah.
And do you think, I mean, to me, B2B has a potential here to change the world of communication?
Definitely. When you're looking through the feed on LinkedIn, for example, you often see these discussions about the difference between B2B and B2C. And the only real difference between the two that I see is that B2C is about convincing one person to make a purchasing decision in many cases. Am I going to buy that television? Am I going to buy that phone? Am I going to buy that particular chicken from that particular supermarket? Whereas B2B is all about convincing a group of people to jointly make a decision. So managers right down to technical people who are influenced and impacted by the choices made, and other people that actually have to use maybe a new piece of software every day. So there is some difference in the way you construct the messages and how you distribute them. But I think that the process for doing that should really be the same, and it isn't. What we see in B2B often, and I think you'll have experienced the same, we often start with the materials. We're going to do a PowerPoint presentation. We're going to do a webinar. We're going to have a product sheet. And we then have to go and fill all those materials with life, with some sort of story. Instead, whereas in the B2C world, I think an advertising agency will be looking at the story. They'll be looking at consumers or looking at choices they're making, what it is they're doing, where they're going, how we're going to interact with them, how we can appeal to them and drive emotion. And then they start looking at which channels they're going to use and which materials they're going to use to do that. And I think that's one of the key differences, don't you?
That's a huge difference indeed. And this is kind of interesting. I mean, the interaction I had with most of the companies that I've been about have been, because of the high-tech industry, very much driven on data and data sheets and technical information and mountains of information passed through, where you get to the point where you lose the information of what is the key message that you want your audience to receive. And for you out there, the key message is really what you have to do. And video gives that opportunity to send a key message about one topic, and then for the same product, a second key message in a different session, and a third one and a fourth one, if required, instead of jamming it all into a 1 hour data-packed PowerPoint brain incredible dump. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't have a word about how to explain that. And I think that this is the key element of the storytelling, is if we come to the point of a strategy of marketing about how to position a product with what if this could be used into this environment, what if this could solve that problem, what if it would work that way, what if you could do this way, and then after that go into the product behind that.
Exactly.
There's a big difference of approach.
Definitely. That brings me on to this book that I brought with me today. This is a book called Everybody Writes by Anne Handley. And there's loads and loads of good tips and ideas which help people who want to improve their writing or start writing, really get to grips with storytelling and putting together a good story and a good package of words, whatever it is you're trying to do. And there's an excellent quote here in section 18. It's called Show, Don't Tell. And it's a small quote from Anton Chekhov. And he says, "Don't tell me that the moon is shining. Show me the glint of moon on broken glass." And that's really the big difference. You can have a fantastic low on resistance power device that has really good recovery characteristics and is based upon the latest silicon carbide technology. And those facts are wonderful and interesting for people who really absorb and learn from those facts. But that device could actually be the difference between getting to my destination on time in my electric vehicle or not, because the efficiency improvements that it offers adds me the extra 4 or 5 kilometers I need for my journey. And it's that sort of turning around of the discussion in order to make it more appealing. And also in the B2B environment, yes, the facts are important, the data sheet is valuable, we need to know those information in order to put the devices into a product. But when we look back, and that discussion, the point I made earlier about trying to reach people at different levels, yes, the engineer at the very bottom, they may need to know what the actual number is, what the amps, voltages, on resistance, etc. all are. But at the top level, you've probably got a management team and a project team looking to understand which supplier are we going to put our faith in to help us be successful with our next product introduction, which is going to deliver us on the long term in order that we can do those types of things.
And in this case, the interesting part is that the use of video, in fact, brings a great deal of potential that was not there before. I mean, before you would bring people into a conference call or into a conference room, and you would inundate them with information. And I'm not saying there's no value into that, but the fact is that at the end of the day, what happens is that what is the decision-making element that is going to convince somebody to use that product or service?
Yeah.
And it might be indeed some of the technical information, but the application behind is the one. And I know that, I mean, storytelling is what you do. You write script, you love to write. When you go to a customer and they tell you, I've got a new product I want to launch, what is your approach?
Well, my first approach is to get as quickly as possible to the people that talk to customers and work with customers every day, because they're the ones with the stories, they're the ones with the experiences, and they're able to tell me the challenges that their customers are facing, what improvements they're trying to achieve, and what's stopping them from doing that with today's technology, and how their technology is able to bridge that gap. And also failures, mistakes, all sorts of those sort of elements as well are really, really important, because at the end of the day, there's so many people around the world developing products, and many of them sit alone in isolations or they're in small teams who have limited experience outside of their own sphere of product development. And they're really looking for some support and help and exchange with other people to see how are other people doing this, what approaches are they taking. And they're the ones that deliver me the most information and are of the most use when I'm developing some material. The data sheets and everything and the PowerPoint and presentations, I can absorb those in quickly, and that's the facts. But we want the stories.
And this is the interesting part about, I think, video marketing, is the fact that when a company builds a strategy on video marketing, it is not something that is a replication of the physical world and put into just in front of a camera.
No.
It has its own characteristics. It has its own parameters. It has its own differentiators also. And I think this is where the world is gradually now going to learn and how to use video in a way that is not about just putting data in front, but in fact providing a dialogue information with the audience and with the people that are on the studio, like we do today.
Yeah.
I mean, if you would be an outstanding, incredible specialist for a high-tech product, and you have all the knowledge, but it doesn't mean that you have the information about how to format that and pass it on in a way that the audience can follow it. And I think this is where the discussion of having a host, having a dialogue, having those what-ifs, helps bring the data still, but at the same time illustrates the information in a better way for people to say, oh yeah, how is this going to resolve my problem? How is this going to enable me to go to market?
Yeah. Recently, I don't know what the experience has been for yourself, but recently I've seen a lot more broadcast style webinars taking place. They're still using the PowerPoint presentation, but they are having a host sit there and sort of guide everybody along. But the thing that amazes me is how often the host is just somebody selected from the team who doesn't have the in-depth knowledge about the product area or the application space that's being discussed. And I was in one webinar recently where these questions were coming in, obviously from participants who didn't have English as a first language. The structure of the question was a bit unusual and it required some interpretation. And the poor lady involved was simply repeating the question as it was coming in and was really struggling. The participants were really struggling to answer the questions because she wasn't able to look at them and interpret them or sort of assume or try to figure out what that might mean or what the context may be or even expand upon that question further. And that doesn't help either, does it? It's not really providing the guidance that people are looking for and stilts and holds back the entire conversation.
Yeah, and I think this is very interesting because you have a number of people now that are out there that are good hosts. They know how to talk to a camera. They know how to engage with the audience, which is really cool. But they are they are missing by missing that knowledge. It makes them just like a, hi, how you doing? I'm okay. And what do you want to say? And I want to say this and this thing, right?
Yeah.
So I know we have limited time, because I mean we're not doing this in 10 minutes.
No.
But we want to make sure that we have definitely some good tips for our audience here. I would say my view here is that if somebody is doing a presentation, the one that is the primary person talking during a presentation is the computer. It's not the person.
Yeah.
This is the other scary part, right? I mean, it's like big people are behind the screen doing a presentation, and the attention goes to a computer, not to a human person anymore. So I think that has to change, and people have to learn about how to do that. Not everybody is camera ready.
No, and I don't know that you actually need to be camera ready, but you definitely need to be presentation ready. And there's, I think many businesses have failed to allow their staff to go on courses to learn how to present successfully and how to overcome their fears of presenting. Lots of people don't like standing up in front of an audience, and sometimes a webinar is quite nice because I don't have lots of people. I'm just saying something, and there may be people listening, but that doesn't seem quite so scary. But I think that's a real shame. If people actually want to develop those skills, there's Toastmasters, which is a good organization for learning about public speaking and impromptu speaking, and also planned speaking. So those are good things to worth looking at. And the other one is obviously to turn to us at the Creative Lab, because we have this fantastic lab here in order to be able to practice. And at the end of the day, it's practice that makes perfect. If you don't have the opportunity to sit down and give it a go and review the results, how do I look on camera? How do I speak? How do the questions come across? You're never going to really understand what it's like. And you need to dampen that fear, I think, of the unknown. Practice, just like you would to ride a bike or learn a new skill, and give it a go.
And this is indeed the Creative Lab is where not only we do the work in coaching in front of a camera, but there's also the discussion about how is it that you build your whole marketing strategy around that media. It doesn't mean that it's removing the others. The others are there, regardless. PowerPoint presentations will be there, thanks to Microsoft and the great work they've done with that application, and everybody else that are using. I mean, there's Keynote, there are many, Visio, and many others. Those are great tools, but they are not the communication itself. They are support material. And I think this is the very important element I'd like the audience to remember today, is that this is support material. This is not exactly what the people are looking for when they go on a call.
Exactly, yeah. I think you've really hit the nail on the head there. It's a crutch that helps people move their way through the material. It gives them some guidance posts along the way, but it shouldn't replace the actual thrust of the communication, which is the person.
Yes, and so storytelling is really, I think, the next step, right? And not everybody is equipped. Not everybody has this. That's why there are studios out there. That's why there are marketers. There are writers. There are technical people like Mick behind who's managing all this for us.
Yeah.
And this is teamwork.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
That's the other element I think that we have to bring to the point, is the fact that you need to have the right people, but you have also to understand, step back for a moment, and really focus on what is the key message you want to position out.
Yeah, exactly.
And so based on that, I think the other element, and we are going to have, in fact, more episodes coming up with guests, and that we are going to tie into the broadcast.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Me too, absolutely. I mean, the more people we have into a dialogue, the better it is, because it is storytelling, even for what we do with the Creative Lab. I think the key element here, we're going to touch on what is it going for startups, for example, to use marketing.
Yeah.
I think you have also a guest coming in, and we're going to talk more about marketing at a higher level.
Yeah, and also about the culture. So taking marketing activities from one culture and seeing how they can then be replicated in a different country, in a different culture, and what needs to be considered there.
And this adds even further into storytelling, because the stories that you can tell into one culture will be different than another one.
Absolutely.
Or different from a type of audience to another one, which potentially could use the same product or service. But the positioning might be different, and you can touch many different angles with different storytelling.
That's the point, yeah.
That's the whole point. I think this is wonderful. We're coming to an end for this episode, but I really hope that everybody out there, you're going to enjoy this, watch it again, make some comments, let us know if that helps. We want to hear from you and see if this is something where we can help you. In fact, running your marketing strategy using video marketing and integrate that into your overall marketing strategy. And we are here at the Creative Lab extremely happy to have had the opportunity to talk about this. And I can't wait to have you there for another episode of The Creative Minds. Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you very much too, Flavio. I look forward to the next show.
Absolutely. I think this is the way it should work. And we're moving forward with ideas and